They are eating the mermaids. And I absolutely believe it. This is my opinion. And there's nothing that anyone can do to make me change it, because y'all the same ones who was eating and making cookbooks of other humans. So of course you're eating the mermaids, and that's why we don't know anything about mermaids, and that's why mermaids is a figment of all of our imagination. But the mermaids are all over the books, all over caves. They have been spotted throughout history, from the beginning of time even to now. But all of a sudden, they do not exist unless they land on an elite's big fat plate. How convenient.
Somebody told me the coolest story about a company that catches big fish, if you can call them that. They kind of feel like us a little bit, but they do it for a living. So this guy named Landon, he's like 28 years old. He's living with his parents. He's fresh out of prison. He bounces back and forth from job to job. And finally, his parents put him out on his ass. They're like, look, you need to go call your cousin. He has a fishing charter. Get in touch with him and see if you can't go to work for your cousin, Travis. He gets in touch with Travis. Landon leaves the Midwest and goes to the East Coast to this little fishing community. It's all about fishing charters. This is like their main means of income in this community. Well, he gets out there. He stays a couple of days, and they're getting ready to go back out, and then he finds out it's not his cousin's fishing charter anymore. He lost his fishing charter. So he meets up with a couple of guys. We're just going to use this picture as an example. He meets up with the crew. And this other guy, which they call Captain Burgess, we're going to call him Captain Burgess, was running this charter. And he was like, wait a minute, dude, this is not what you told me. You didn't tell me up until now that this was not your crew. So Landon's like, okay, fuck it. Let's just go ahead and do it. Work's work, right? Especially when you're a felon. So they get out to this boat, and it's not like a little bitty dingy boat or anything like that, but it's not a huge boat. It's like a medium size, okay? And Travis is showing Landon all around the boat, and they walk into this room. They had left the kitchen area, and he showed him where the bunks were and everything else. Well, they walked through to get to the bunks through a room that had some tanks in it, okay? But these weren't normal at all. It was kind of like this, but it had a bluish fluid in it, okay? And he said that it had wheels on it, and there were these little things that snapped down to the ground to hold it in place, but you could also unsnap them, and you could wheel it around. Kind of like this color. So out of curiosity, he's like, Travis, what are those for? And he was like, oh, those are for the big payday, okay? Those are for when we get big bonus. That's big bonus time. And he explains to him that Captain Burgess has a very specific clientele over certain types of fish that they will get a mega bonus, okay? Well, after he finishes doing all that, and they go and they eat dinner and they're getting ready to push out or whatever, Captain Burgess approaches him and wants him to sign a piece of paper. And he said that on this piece of paper, it basically states that anything that you see out here, you're not to come back and talk about it. Basically like a little NDA. He said the first 2 days they were out there, it was just regular fish. Well, it was a stormy night, and they were going to head back in because it was going to be really, really bad. And Captain Burgess had all this equipment in his office and everything else, And he was like, no, we're not going back in. We got something big. It's all hands on deck. You know what I mean? They're all big, outside. Y'all. It's pouring rain. It's storming. And they bring the net up. Okay? They bring this net that had been down at the bottom all day that day up. And he said what he saw inside was like nothing he had ever seen before, probably ever will again if he ever lives to tell the story again. Of course not.
It was a mermaid.
He said that it was like a pasty, whitish green skin, okay? And the fin, okay, from like the hip bone down, like the hip bones were huge. But from there down, it was just like the body of a fish. And he said that it was like bright, greenish white, silvery scales. And very, very slimy. And like greenish black hair. And wasn't pretty. But this one in particular wasn't putting up very much of a fight. And it spoke. It spoke. He said that
It spoke.
he
So they can
couldn't
talk.
understand what language it was speaking in, but it felt like it was begging for its life.
It probably was.
So
I'm quite
Burgess
sure
is
it
screaming,
was.
get the tank, get the tank. They get it rolled out there. The
Sounds
fluid in
about
it
right.
sloshing all over the place. They get her in there, and she sinks to the bottom, and she's just pleading for her life, underwater, pleading for her life. And he's like, I did not sign up for this. What the fuck is going on? And so his cousin, he asked his cousin that night, and he's like, don't make a big deal out of this right now. Don't do it. Well, something really sinister is afoot, and he doesn't even realize it. They end up pushing off. Okay, the storm starts to calm down or whatever. And they ended up going to port, and they went to a different warehouse. And they took this siren
Mermaid.
to a different warehouse, and it was set up like a restaurant. Come to find out, these clientele, he had sonar machines and everything to track these things down. Okay, like stuff that you would not even believe if you saw it. And they were all there, the crew was there and everything else. And these people, okay, that had him go and catch this thing. And they say it's like really common among the wealthy. And they put it on a gurney, they pushed it out, and they all had their knives and forks and everything else. It was
They
set
eat
up
it
like
raw?
a hibachi, sort of. It's a really long story, and I'm trying to shorten it down, but to make a long story short, they ended up going back out one more time, and he's struggling with himself.
Do
And
they
he said
eat
he
it
didn't know
raw?
if he could ever watch or see that thing scream like that again, because you know what they did with it, right? And he said that he was really, really struggling with his humanity, but he took the next job because it paid so well. He was like, it paid so well.
OMG. He
So
took the
they
next
ended up
job.
not seeing any on the next 4 or 5 trips out, and he was like, thank God that's over. Well, they ended up running into another one, but this one was a fighter. And it didn't look the same, okay? Like this one had a blackish toned skin with like white colored hair, whitish green colored hair. He
Well,
was
I'm
like,
quite
it was
sure they
super
probably
duper
look
weird,
different. They
but
all
these
probably...
things do actually exist. But
Did they eat
I
it
want to hear
raw?
more about it because he told me like 3 of them. He said he only
Part
experienced
2,
3
y'all.
times,
Part 2.
and that he
We need to
basically
know.
was in fear for his life because of the clientele. And
Did
he's
they
like, I will never reveal who they are. He
eat
was like,
it
but
raw?
they're pretty high up, and people do know who they are.
Be sure to subscribe to my new YouTube channel at Queenology 100. The link is in my bio, or if you're on YouTube, just type in at Queenology 100 and make sure to hit the notification bell.